We had barely been married for a year when my husband brought Lin Manru before me, saying he wanted to take her as a concubine. Naturally, I refused. Lin Manru was brazen and haughty, and relying on my husband's love for her, she started fighting with me. The entire Marquis manor became a foul, chaotic mess. I lost my child and my fertility, while Lin Manru lost her life. My reputation was completely ruined by this. All of Shengjing was saying that the mistress of the Annan Marquis manor was stupid, jealous, and as vicious as a scorpion. For the sake of the Duke's mansion's reputation, my parents voluntarily relented and allowed my husband to marry a co-wife. The one he married was his cousin. Later, I found out that the one my husband loved had always been his cousin. Me and Lin Manru were just stepping stones, nothing more. I was locked up in the estate, lonely and miserable for 30 years. Then I was reborn. During those 30 years locked in the estate, I was always pondering, as the eldest legitimate daughter of the Duke's estate, marrying the young Marquis of the Annan Marquisate was considered marrying beneath my station. By all rights, I should have been able to summon wind and rain, getting whatever I desired. Why then, in the end, have I fallen to such a wretched state? Me husband, Zhao Shizai, has a new wife. They live in wedded bliss every day, and he has likely already forgotten my face and voice. Ever since my parents agreed to let Zhao Shizai take a co-wife, they have ceased to care whether I live or die. They even adopted that co-wife as their goddaughter, acting as though they never gave birth to or raised me. My child was only 5 months along. Just as he learned to kick my belly, he turned into a pool of blood and left me. Less than 2 years into my marriage at the Annan Marquis manor, I went from being the graceful, universally praised, legitimate daughter of the Duke's manor to becoming a laughingstock for everyone's gossip. Was I destined for this? I endured 30 years of slow torture, like oil burning down, and died full of resentment. Opening my eyes again, I saw Lin Manru, with whom I had once fought tooth and nail. She was young and beautiful, wearing a fashionable floral jacket and skirt, standing behind my husband. The look she gave me was respectful on the surface, but the upturned corners of her mouth couldn't hide the smug satisfaction of a petty person having their way. I felt dazed for a moment and realized I had undergone rebirth. Zhao Shizai spoke to me just like in the previous life. A Wu Manru has already given her body to me. I don't want to let her down, nor do I want to deceive you, so I've come to discuss with you. Can we take Manru in as a concubine? You'll have a companion in the inner courtyard in the future too. In the previous life, I was absolutely furious. Right in front of Zhao Shizai, I slapped Lin Manru, yelling that I was going to kick her out of the Marquise's manor. Lin Manru is an orphan. Back in the day, her father sacrificed his own life to save the old Marquis. To repay her father's kindness, the Marquis of Annan's manor took her in to raise her. If she were kicked out, not only would Lin Manru have nowhere to go, but people would also accuse the Marquis of Annan's manor of being ungrateful. So, in my past life, I didn't get my wish to kick Lin Manru out. Instead, I got scolded by my mother-in-law. The open battles and secret schemes between me and Lin Manru all started with this slap. All right. I smiled and said to the two of them, actually, I had this very intention. Manru is no longer young, and having been kept in the Marquise's manor all this time, it doesn't sound good when outsiders talk about it. Her father was a benefactor to our manor, so even if she is to be a concubine, the proper rights cannot be skimped on. Why don't we have the counting house take out some banknotes, and our manor can grandly host a small, joyous occasion? Lin Manru's eyes lit up, and she asked, Madam, you aren't angry. Since I have married my husband, naturally I should put my husband first. If my husband wants to give you respectability and I get angry, wouldn't that be slapping my husband in the face? I said solemnly. As a legitimate daughter raised by the Duke's manor, I certainly have this much tolerance. Having said that, I looked at Zhao Shizai and smiled. Shizai, today's matter can happen once but not twice. Frequently taking concubines will, firstly, make outsiders think you are addicted to lust. If you are impeached by the censors, His Majesty will reduce the high regard he holds for you. Secondly, it harms the face of my maiden family, and I won't be able to explain it easily then. Zhao Shizai never expected that I would agree to the matter of taking a concubine so easily. He had not the slightest bit of joy, and a trace of regret flashed through his eyes. He was certain that I had the pride of a high-born noble daughter, and would definitely not be willing to share my husband with someone else after just 1 year of marriage. It just so happened that Lin Manru was not easy to deal with either, so he brought Lin Manru before me to demand a status. He was deliberately trying to pit me against Lin Manru. Unfortunately, in my previous life, I was so blinded by rage that I didn't notice it at all. Now that I agreed to his request right away, he probably doesn't know how to keep the act going for the moment. "Awu, are you really willing?" Zhao Shizai asked me. I stood up, took Lin Manru's hand, and said, "There is no time like the present. Let's go before mother-in-law right now and explain the matter." We arrived at Xi'an courtyard, and I spoke to mother-in-law about taking in Lin Manru as a concubine. Mother-in-law frowned. She shook her head and said, "Who takes a concubine after having been married for only a year? Shizai, Awu is your wife. You need to consider Awu's feelings." "Mother, I agree to it," I said. Mother-in-law looked at me, then looked at Lin Manru, whom Zhao Shizai was shielding behind him. Finally, at my urging, she agreed to the matter. I fetched the almanac and looked through it with mother-in-law, setting the date for the concubine induction ceremony for the 7th day of the 11th month, just 5 days from now. Lin Manru felt that she had finally made it. She was incredibly excited, while Zhao Shizai felt nothing but melancholy. I made an excuse for him. It seems husband really likes Manru. He is so happy he is at a loss for what to do. Zhao Shizai snapped back to reality, used the excuse that he had official business to handle, and got up to go to the study. I guessed he wanted to go discuss the next steps with the person he really likes, so I deliberately ordered Lin Manru around. "Concubine Lin, now that your status is official, the study is cold. The chores of grinding ink and adding charcoal will be handed over to you from now on." "Thank you, madam." Lin Manru agreed and chased after him happily. After they left, my mother-in-law held my head and comforted me. "Child, you have suffered a grievance today." I recalled the suffering I endured in my past life, and my eyes instantly reddened. Choking back sobs, I said to my mother-in-law, "Mother, since I married him, I am his wife. If I didn't allow it today, he would yearn for it day and night, and I would have to allow it sooner or later. By then, the affection between husband and wife would be worn thin. It is better that I allow him today, so he might remember my kindness." "Good child," my mother-in-law said. "Shizai is young and doesn't know how to cherish people, but mother cherishes you." She called the steward, fetched the storeroom keys and account books, and handed the household management power over to me. She also took out the deeds for several jewelry shops and gave them to me, saying they would be my private property from now on. She was compensating me on behalf of her son. I accepted the things, and my mother-in-law breathed a sigh of relief. She said, "Awu, rest assured. I will have a stern talk with Shizai and make him remember your kindness." Returning from Xi'an courtyard to Juming courtyard, I had just sat down when someone impatiently came to the door. The visitor was Su Xiangyao, the woman my husband, Zhao Shizai, truly likes. Her biological mother was my mother-in-law's cousin, who remarried after being widowed, taking Su Xiangyao along. Her new husband's family didn't like Su Xiangyao, so my mother-in-law took her in to raise her by her side. She and Zhao Shizai were childhood sweethearts and had long pledged their lives to each other. But they knew that with Su Xiangyao's status, wanting to marry Zhao Shizai was as hard as climbing to heaven. So they waited patiently until I married into the Marquise's manor, and only then did they start plotting. Seeing her, I thought of how foolishly I was played right in the palm of her hand in my past life. "Sister-in-law, I heard you allowed cousin to take a concubine." She asked me impatiently. I pressed my left hand over my right, smiled and nodded. That is right. Xu Xiangyao got anxious and blurted out. How can that be? I didn't speak. Just looked at her. She explained. Sister-in-law, I feel it is unfair for you. She brought over a small stool, sat down next to me, acting like we were very close, and said indignantly, Sister-in-law, you are a noble daughter from a high family. What kind of thing is that Lin Manru? Does she even deserve to share a husband with you? Cousin is really too much. He has you yet doesn't know how to cherish you, dragging whatever, fragrant or foul, into his room. Xu Xiangyao had said these words to me in my past life as well. That I fought with Lin Manru to such an extent, aside from Lin Manru truly being hateful, was also due in no small part to her instigation. At this moment, I smiled and watched her finish her performance, then spoke slowly. Xiangyao, you are not married yet. You don't understand the difficulties of being the mistress of a household after a woman marries. Although Manru's family background is far beneath mine, her dad lost his life saving the old marquis, and she has a straightforward personality. It is only natural that Shizai would fall for her. Besides, Shizai promised me, now that he has Manru, he won't add any other women in the future. Tell me, why would I bother upsetting the whole household fighting with him over a Lin Manru? Hearing these words, Xu Xiangyao was so angry that her breathing became rapid. The overwhelming unwillingness in her heart, at this moment turned into something she couldn't put into words. I didn't expose her, deliberately discussing with her how to arrange the concubine taking ceremony 5 days from now. After Xu Xiangyao found an excuse to leave, the smile on my face faded. Me made Jingxin's eyes reddened as she said, Madam, the master is simply bullying you too much. Miss Cousin was right. Let's go back to the Duke's manor and complain to the lord and lady. And then, I asked her. She said as a matter of course, naturally, it is to have the lord give the master a reprimand and make the master apologize to you, madam. It is just an apology. It can't be eaten or worn. What do I want with it? I said. I've already married into the Marquis of Annan's manor. Even if Zhao Shizai takes 100 concubines, my parents would never let me divorce and go back to being a young lady of the Duke's manor. They love me as a daughter, but they love the face of the Duke's manor more. If one day my reputation is ruined and it damages the Duke's manor, my parents would abandon me without any mercy. Jingxin's expression changed several times. She grew up by my side in the Duke's manor, so she knew what I said wasn't impossible. Madam, then what will you do? Don't worry. As long as I don't take a wrong step, the Duke's manor will always be my backing. The Annan Marquis manor will sooner or later be my home as well. I stroked my belly and spoke with certainty. Judging by the timing, the child I never got the chance to meet in my previous life has now taken root and sprouted in my belly. I put my heart and soul into organizing this concubine taking ceremony for my husband. Lin Manru has no family, so I personally took her to the best shops to pick out rouge and jewelry, and found the best tailor in Shangjing to measure her for clothes. I arranged for her to live in Henglin Courtyard, the closest courtyard to Zhao Shizai's study. I picked out antique vases from the storehouse to decorate it, then went to the flower and bird market to buy flowers and plants, urging the servants to rush and plant them. The Jiangnan merchants sent Taihu stones and Shushan stones as New Year's gifts, and I had them all moved to Henglin Courtyard to make a rockery. The old servants in the residence advised me that there was no need to give a concubine so much face. I sighed and said, I am not giving the concubine face. I am giving my husband face, who told her to be the one at the tip of my husband's heart right now. Lin Manru was already of a flamboyant and arrogant nature. Being exalted by me like this, she became even more brazen. Whoever in the mansion upset her, whether it was a house-born servant or a steward, she would give them a scolding. When the servants came to me to complain, I told them all to bear with it. So as time went on, everyone up and down the mansion knew that Lin Manru was the person at the tip of the Marquis's heart, and even I, the rightful mistress of the house, had to avoid her sharp edge. Soon, the 7th day of the 11th month arrived. Early in the morning, I called Lin Manru into my room and gave her a brocade box. "This is the Kunling pill bestowed by the palace on the day of my wedding," I said to her. "The palace bestowed too. Today is the day you officially become Shizai's concubine, so I bestow one upon you. I hope you work hard to spread branches and scatter leaves for the Marquise's manor. The Kunling pill is a pill that helps women conceive. Only the palace has it, and a single pill is worth 1,000 gold." Lin Manru happily took the pill, didn't even thank me, and said smugly, "The Marquis cherishes me. I will definitely be able to add a son to the Marquise's manor soon." After she left, Jingxin said with disgust, "She is too arrogant. She is just a concubine. Yet she actually dares to use you and I in front of you, madam. Why bother lifting her up, madam? You even gave her the Kunling pill. It is stuff I won't use anyway, so I just gave it away." I stroked my belly and said with a smile, "Even if you raise a dog, you have to feed it meaty bones." In my previous life, although Lin Manru didn't die by my hand, the child in my womb was most definitely lost when I fell while she and I were shoving each other. So, now that I am making use of her, my conscience is clear. I was worried that Zhao Shizai wouldn't touch Lin Manru today for Xu Shangyao's sake, so I ordered the servants to switch all the wine in Henglin Courtyard to Peach Blossom Drunk. Peach Blossom Drunk has a lingering taste, but a strong kick. I know Lin Manru. As long as Zhao Shizai doesn't walk out of Henglin Courtyard tonight, Lin Manru will make that Kunling pill work its magic. Sure enough, the next morning when Lin Manru came to serve me tea, her cheeks were flushed, although there were dark circles under her eyes, and she looked tired. She was glowing with high spirits. I asked the servants, and they said Henglin Courtyard only asked for hot water when it was nearly dawn. Having died once, my love for Zhao Shizai has died too, knowing he battled fiercely with Lin Manru all night. Not only was I not sad, I even felt satisfied. I drank the tea Lin Manru served, then took her to see my mother-in-law. In Xi'an Courtyard, Xu Shangyao was standing behind my mother-in-law massaging her shoulders. Seeing Lin Manru and me enter one after another, a flash of jealous hatred passed through her eyes. After my mother-in-law offered us seats, Lin Manru sat down with me. "Concubine Lin, who told you to sit?" Xu Shangyao scolded Lin Manru with a stern face. "You are a concubine, only half a master. You should be standing beside the mistress of the house serving tea and water," she said snidely. "Concubine Lin, please recognize your status." She looked like she was standing up for me, but actually she was venting her own anger. I smiled and said to my mother-in-law, "Mother, concubine Lin worked hard last night, and I don't lack people to wait on me, so just let her sit. When Shizai comes back from court later, he'll feel bad for her." Mother-in-law sighed. "Awu, you child, you are too kind-hearted." But in the end, she still acquiesced to Lin Manru sitting down. Even though Xu Shangyao knew how to mask it, since I was looking closely, I still clearly saw the hatred for Lin Manru in the depths of her eyes. After this skirmish, neither big nor small, this morning Xu Shangyao and Lin Manru started to be at odds with each other. Xu Shangyao used the excuse of standing up for me to torment Lin Manru, but Lin Manru wasn't a pushover either. She took the energy she used to fight me in the previous life and directed it all at Xu Shangyao. As for me, on one hand I advised Xu Shangyao, "Concubine Lin is the person your cousin holds most dear. Don't keep provoking her, or your cousin will feel bad later." On the other hand, I sent a steady stream of food, amusements, clothes, and jewelry to Henglin Courtyard, having someone tell Lin Manru, "The madam is virtuous and not the jealous sort. Miss Cousin is unmarried and judged others by her own standards, misunderstanding the madam, which is why she made things difficult for you. Concubine, the madam has already admonished Miss Cousin and hopes you can let bygones be bygones." After that, the conflicts between the two became more frequent, and they would have 1 or 2 scenes, big or small, every day. The two of them, one is the woman Zhao Shizai loves most on the surface, and the other is his true sweetheart. When those two start tearing into each other, Zhao Shizai gets a massive headache. It just so happened that the end of the year was approaching and the Ministry of Revenue was swamped. So he kept using work as an excuse to hole up in the ministry and refuse to come home. Whether he came home or not, I didn't care. I took advantage of this time to meet all the stewards, big and small, using both kindness and authority. By the end of the 11th month, I had managed everything in the Marquise's manor into perfect order. I didn't rush to swap the people in important positions with my own. The time wasn't right yet. When the middle of the 12th month arrived, and I was discussing the New Year's gifts for the various households with my mother-in-law, I couldn't help but eat a whole plate of sour plums on the table clean. Awoo, don't your teeth feel sour? My mother-in-law stopped talking and stared at me to ask, not really. I lowered my head and said embarrassedly, I've been a bit greedy for food lately. My mother-in-law had been through this before. Suppressing the wild joy in her heart, she sent servants to get a doctor. The doctor arrived very quickly. He placed his fingers on my wrist and immediately diagnosed that I was expecting. It had already been 3 months. My mother-in-law was overjoyed. She was so excited, she was incoherent. Good-a-woo. Good, good, good. You silly child. You've been pregnant for so long and didn't even notice. Quick! Send someone to invite the Marquis back. He is going to be a father. I pursed my lips and smiled, then saw Xu Shangyao standing beside my mother-in-law, looking at me with a fake smile. Wait, don't go get the Marquis just yet. I stopped the servant, turned my head to my mother-in-law, and said, Have the doctor check concubine Lin's pulse first as well. My mother-in-law said indifferently, That works too. Then let him check hers as well. The doctor's fingers rested on Lin Manru's wrist, and Lin Manru looked at the doctor expectantly. Congratulations, old madam. Congratulations, madam. Concubine Lin is also expecting. She is already over a month along. The doctor smiled and congratulated them. I was overjoyed and had the servants fetch the reward silver for the doctor. Lin Manru rubbed her belly happily and said, If the Marquis finds out, who knows how happy he'll be. Mother-in-law kept urging the servants, Quick, go to the Ministry of Revenue and give the Marquis the good news. I smiled. While discreetly looking at Xu Shangyao, her face was deathly pale, her eyes crazy, sadness and hatred interwoven. Zhao Shizai came back. When he walked in the door, he almost tripped. Mother-in-law laughed at him. You are about to be a dad, yet you are still so unsteady. He looked at me and Lin Manru, the gentle smile in his eyes, rarely so genuine. In my past life, after he learned I was pregnant, he did briefly treat me with sincerity, but that little bit of sincerity quickly turned into Lin Manru's jealousy. On the day of the flower festival, she deliberately picked a quarrel with me and started shoving, causing me to lose the child. But in this lifetime, Lin Manru is also pregnant. The biggest eyesore will be Lin Manru's belly. Let her and Xu Shangyao fight it out. I just need to protect my own belly. Ah, Wu, whatever you want. Just mention it, and I'll have Shizai buy it for you. My mother-in-law probably wanted to give me, the main wife, some face, so she mentioned it deliberately. There isn't really anything special I want. It is just that I've been feeling exhausted these past few days. I said with an apologetic look. Mother, it is the end of the year and there are many affairs in the household. I am afraid I don't have the energy to manage the household duties. Why don't we temporarily hand the tokens over to cousin Shangyao and let her manage them for me? My mother-in-law patted her forehead. Look at me. I didn't even think of that. It is my fault. You just got pregnant, so you really should rest more. Let's hand the tokens to Shangyao for the time being. Once the new year is over and the household isn't so busy, we'll give them back to you. Why give it to Miss Cousin? Lin Manru was unhappy. She spoke up. Miss Cousin is an unmarried girl. What business does she have managing the Marquis's household? Since Madame is exhausted, this concubine has plenty of energy. Her thinking was very clear. Xu Shangyao was at odds with her. If Xu Xiangyao managed the household, her days of suffering were about to begin. So, no matter what, she didn't want to see the power of household management fall into Xu Xiangyao's hands. But mother-in-law interrupted her, snorting coldly. If we don't let cousin manage it, are we supposed to let you manage it? Concubine Lin, don't forget. You are pregnant too. It is fine if you bicker usually, but if you harm Shisai's offspring, you'd better watch yourself. On the surface she was scolding Lin Manru, but she also intended to give a warning to Xu Xiangyao. Lin Manru was just a concubine. Her opinion didn't matter. So the matter of managing the household was settled, just like that. Auntie and sister-in-law, rest assured. I will definitely manage the household well for cousin. If there is anything I don't understand, sister-in-law and auntie can just teach me, Xu Xiangyao said. Originally, when Lin Manru and I were diagnosed with pregnancy at the same time, Xu Xiangyao looked as if the sky was falling. Now that I have temporarily given the household management rights to her, she has become full of ambition again. She probably thinks this is her chance. After Xu Xiangyao got the command tallies, the first thing she did was take advantage of the year-end personnel chaos to plant her own people in every courtyard. One was planted in my Zhuming courtyard too. A maid named Chuya. She was in charge of sweeping the front of the courtyard. I instructed Jingxin to watch out for her, not to let her have any chance to enter the inner room, and not to let her or anyone else have a chance to touch my food or fetus, soothing medicine. Jingxin is a steady person. After I instructed her, she personally took charge of anything that was to enter my mouth. Zhao Shizai was probably pestered to no end by Xu Xiangyao and Lin Manru, so he started running to my courtyard frequently. He brought a book over, saying he was going to read it to the child in my belly. If he wants to read, I'll let him read. It is not me who'll get a dry mouth anyway. Xu Xiangyao ran over to my courtyard a few times under the guise of delivering tonics. Seeing that Zhao Shizai kept a distance of several meters from me and wasn't being all clingy, she felt relieved and went off to focus wholly on her own business. I asked Jingxin to put those tonics away one by one on the curio shelf. I didn't touch a drop. In the blink of an eye, New Year's Eve arrived. There was a banquet in the palace, so Zhao Shizai went out early in the morning. Originally, as the Marchioness, I should have gone to attend the palace banquet too. But I've been having morning sickness these past few days. Plus, there are many rules at the palace banquet, and my mother-in-law was afraid my body couldn't take it, so she had Zhao Shizai decline on my behalf. After Zhao Shizai went out, Jingxin pulled me into the inner room and whispered to me, "Miss, I saw Auntie Zhou from the kitchen come to talk to Kuya from our courtyard." Aunt Zhou, who worked in the kitchen, was originally Xu Xiangyao's wet nurse. After Xu Xiangyao obtained the pair of cards, she took the opportunity to place her in the kitchen. As soon as I heard that, I knew Xu Xiangyao was about to make a move. I said to Jingxin, "Tonight at the family banquet, don't leave the old madam's sight." "Miss, your morning sickness is so bad. Can you hold up?" Jingxin asked worriedly. I shook my head and said, "I am not talking about me. I am talking about you. You can't leave the old madam's sight." Jingxin didn't quite understand, but she still nodded and agreed. She has always listened to me. Sure enough, when the evening family banquet arrived, a maid came looking for Jingxin, saying something had happened at Zhuming Courtyard, and she was needed back to make a decision. Jingxin had my instructions, so naturally she refused to go back. She said in front of my mother-in-law, "What could possibly happen at Zhuming Courtyard? It is nothing more than the old women playing cards, drinking, and bickering. Today is New Year's Eve, so I don't need to be strict with them. My mistress has such severe morning sickness. How can I rest easy letting her out of my sight? If you have any issues, come talk to me tomorrow." Hearing her say this, mother-in-law couldn't help but laugh and said to me, "Oh, Wu, this maid of yours isn't bad. She knows what is important." I seized the chance to say, "Jingxin, did you hear that? You need to know what is important. Your only task tonight is to take good care of me." Thus, even if the sky were falling, that maid couldn't call Jinxin away. She stood there for a long while, and only when mother-in-law looked at her suspiciously did she snap out of it and leave in a hurry. I was in high spirits today, sitting beside mother-in-law watching the opera, refusing to go back. I said to mother-in-law, "It is probably that my son wants to stay up for the new year with his grandmother and wait for her red packet, so he won't let me go back." Mother-in-law was amused and delighted. She called for servants to bring over a soft couch and a heater, letting me lie down for a bit if I got tired of sitting. As midnight approached, mother-in-law had Xu Xiangyao direct the stewards to go set off firecrackers at the entrance of the marquise's manor. The midnight bell tolled, and the sound of firecrackers at the entrance of the marquise's manor rang out as well. Lin Menru's personal maid ran weeping toward Xian courtyard. "She is bleeding. She is bleeding." Upon seeing this, the old servants were just about to scold her for having no manners, but suddenly seeing her cheeks reddened by the lantern light, and realizing the meaning behind her words, they all jerked their heads to look at my mother-in-law and me. "What is going on?" My mother-in-law stood up abruptly. Lin Menru's maid said, "Our concubine said her stomach didn't feel right an hour ago and needed to use the toilet. She ran to the latrine 2 or 3 times, so we thought it was just indigestion, but who knew, we just discovered she is bleeding from below. Then hurry and get a doctor." I yawned and started walking in the direction of Henglin Courtyard. Seeing this, my mother-in-law grabbed me and ordered Nanny Li by her side and Jingxin by mine. "Escort the madam back to Juming Courtyard to rest. Don't let her overexert herself," she said to me solemnly. "You are still pregnant. You absolutely must not tire yourself out. Concubine Lin is just a concubine. If she is bleeding, let her bleed. But nothing can happen to your belly. I'll have Xiangyao go over to Henglin Courtyard." "All right, I'll listen to mother," I said obediently. Then, yawning all the way, I returned to Juming Courtyard to sleep under the escort of Jingxin and Nanny Li. When I woke up the next day, before I could even get dressed or wash up, Jingxin was standing by my bed gesturing wildly, saying excitedly, "Madame, guess what? Concubine Lin miscarried." She gritted her teeth and said, "That little hussy named Lin is a real piece of trash. She insists firmly that it was the hibiscus pastries sent from our courtyard that gave her a stomachache." When the Marquis returned and found out, he flew into a rage and wanted to come to Juming Courtyard to question you. I defended myself again and again, saying I never left Xian Courtyard last night. The old madam vouched for me too, saying I was serving by her side the whole time and never took a step away. Only then did the Marquis take Kuya, who delivered the pastries, away for interrogation. Listening to her, I just felt a sense of pure relief. In my past life, Lin Menru caused me to lose my child. In this life, it is her turn. I wonder if she feels as much bitterness in her heart as I did in my past life. Jingxin looked at me eagerly and asked, "Madam, do you think Qiuyu will expose Miss Cousin? If the Marquis finds out about Miss Cousin's intentions, will he kick her out of the manor?" She mused in all seriousness. Concubine Lin had a miscarriage, and Miss Cousin was kicked out of the Marquise's manor. With those 2 flirts gone from the Marquise's side, he'll live wholeheartedly with Madame from now on, won't he? She is so naive. Zhao Shizai took Qiuyu away for interrogation, not to find the real culprit who caused Lin Manru's miscarriage, but to prevent Qiuyu from ratting out Xu Xiangyao. He really loves Xu Xiangyao, loves her so much that even though she killed his own child, he still cleans up her mess. Jingxin saw me staring blankly and couldn't help but ask again, "Madam, why was Miss Cousin so set on ordering Qiuyu to send the hibiscus pastries to Henglin Courtyard?" "Because she is greedy," I said. "In my past life, Xu Xiangyao's various schemes against me and Lin Menru showed she was a person of many thoughts and heavy greed. For every chess move she made, she wanted to take 2 or 3 pieces at once. The child in Lin Menru's belly made her grind her teeth with hatred. She had wanted to get rid of it for a long time. Unfortunately, after she got the household tallies, Lin Menru became very guarded against her, leaving her no chance to make a move. Last night was New Year's Eve. The servants in the manor were all rather relaxed, and Lin Manru would have let her guard down too. So she made up her mind to use this opportunity to deal with Lin Manru's belly. But she didn't want to just deal with Lin Manru's belly. She wanted to deal with me too. She had already gotten the household management power in her hands, and didn't want to hand it back. Therefore, she absolutely had to pin Lin Manru's miscarriage on me. As long as I made a mistake, she could continue to hold the tallies and manage the household. Yesterday at the family banquet, Lin Manru claimed she wasn't feeling well and refused to come, so I had already asked Nanny Lee, who serves my mother-in-law, to take a small portion of all the banquet dishes and send them to Hanglin Courtyard. Xu Xiangyao could only make her move through the hibiscus pastries that the kitchen made on the fly. She arranged for a maid to come look for Jingshin, lying that there was an issue at Juming Courtyard, just because she wanted to pin the blame on Jingshin. Everyone in the Annan Marquis Manor knows Jingshin is my trusted aide. As long as Jingshin gets dragged into this, the blame will land squarely on my head. Logically speaking, Jingshin didn't leave with that maid, so she shouldn't have continued trying to implicate Juming Courtyard. But she was too greedy, afraid she wouldn't get such a good chance again. So she gritted her teeth and used Qiyu anyway. Miss Cousin has way too many schemes. Jingshin clicked her tongue. The Marquise is protecting her like this again. Is there nothing we can do about her? Hurry and help me change. We're going to Xi'an Courtyard, I said. When we arrived at Xi'an Courtyard, Zhao Shizai was there too. He was telling mother-in-law the results of the interrogation. Qiyu dashed her head against a pillar and died to prove her innocence. Before she died, she insisted there was no problem with the hibiscus cakes. I had the doctor examine them, and they were indeed ordinary hibiscus cakes. Manru probably just had indigestion, causing her to go to the privy repeatedly, which led to the miscarriage. She was less than 2 months along, and the pregnancy was unstable to begin with. A few words, and Xu Xiangyao was washed completely clean. Even though I had expected this, I still felt a chill of sorrow in my heart. My mother-in-law asked Zhao Shizai with a cold face, "Is that true?" I found out personally, so naturally it is true. Zhao Shizai said without changing his expression. My mother-in-law sighed in disappointment, but ultimately said nothing. After Zhao Shizai left, I said to my mother-in-law, "Mother, tomorrow is the 2nd day of the 1st lunar month. I should go back to my maiden home. On the 2nd day of the 1st lunar month, it is the custom in our great Zhao for married women to return to their maiden homes." My mother-in-law asked me in a tone of discussion, "Oh Wu, you are pregnant this year. You shouldn't be running around. Why not let Shizai take generous gifts to the Duke's manor and tell the in-laws?" "Mother, it is precisely because I am pregnant that I should return to my maiden home." I looked at my mother-in-law, my expression carrying a trace of sorrow. "Mother, concubine Lin's child is gone. My child must be saved. No one's hand can reach into the Duke's manor." Mother-in-law frowned and said, "Concubine Lin lost the baby herself. If she were even human, she shouldn't hold a grudge against you." Mother knows. I am not talking about concubine Lin. I interrupted my mother-in-law. I don't believe that Zhao Shizai and Xu Xiangyao fell in love right under Zhao Jiangxi's nose, and that Zhao Jiangxi, as a mother, wouldn't notice a single clue. She didn't want to be the villain breaking up her son and his sweetheart, nor did she want to lose a daughter-in-law who was the legitimate daughter of a duke, so she was just covering it up. Sure enough, after I pointed it out, mother-in-law's expression wilted. She lamented. Wu Shizai was just confused for a moment. Besides, you are Shizai's legal wife. Neither concubine Lin nor Xu Xiangyao can compare to you. I let out a no. Me mother-in-law pleaded with me saying, "Ah Wu, you have to forgive him. It is just a fling from when a man is young, that is all." "Mother, I don't have the energy to think about the things you said right now. I just want to get through my pregnancy properly and give birth to my child. He carries Shizai's blood, and my blood too." I stroked my already bulging belly and said, "Shizai doesn't love me, but he will definitely love our child." My mother-in-law could tell from my words that I had not given up on Zhao Shizai, nor did I intend to bring up my family to demand an explanation, and she immediately breathed a sigh of relief. She coaxed me, and coaxed herself as well. That is right. Once the child in your belly is born and Shizai becomes a father, he'll settle down. She agreed that after Zhao Shizai and I returned to my maiden home tomorrow, I could stay at the Duke's manor for a while to focus on my pregnancy. Coming out of Xian Court, my steps felt light. My maiden family might not treasure me like a jewel, but returning while pregnant with the legitimate son of the Marquis of Annan's manor, they will certainly take care of me with all their hearts. Jingxin and I can both sleep soundly now. After returning to Juming Court, I had Jingxin call Shisan over. Shisan is my milk brother. After I married into the Marquis of Annan's manor, his whole family followed along to work at the Marquis's manor. He instructed him. The Marquis interrogated someone to death in the front yard. The body probably hasn't been disposed of yet. Go keep an eye on it. See which mass grave they throw the body into. Watch to make sure wild dogs don't gnaw on it. And then find a way to lead concubine Lin there, so she sees the sword wound on the corpse. Qiyu was a little girl who was afraid of pain. I am certain she wouldn't dare bash her head against a pillar. It was Zhao Shizai, who killed her with his own hands. I inquired with the old sweeping maid in the front courtyard. She saw with her own eyes Zhao Shizai throwing away a blood-stained rag. It must have gotten stained when he used it to wipe the blood off his sword blade after the killing. Shisan acknowledged and left. I then instructed Jingxin. Find 2 loyal, loose-lipped old women to go gossip outside Henglin courtyard. Have them say the Marquis clearly wanted to take Miss Cousin as a concubine back then, but was worried I wouldn't agree, so he elevated concubine Lin instead. Who knew I'd actually agree? Concubine Lin just lucked into the spot Miss Cousin missed out on. So no wonder the 2 of them don't get along. Xu Xiangyao fought Lin Manru like cats and dogs under the banner of standing up for me. But since I myself acted like I accepted Lin Manru must have been suspicious for a while. After she lost the child, Zhao Shizai only went to Henglin courtyard once to explain the results of Qiyu's interrogation to her. Once she hears what the old woman said and sees Qiyu's corpse, the truth should dawn on her. The favor of the Marquis she took such pride in was nothing but an illusion. Compared to Xu Xiangyao, the child in her belly ain't worth shit in Zhao Shizai's heart. Ever since Lin Manru was raised to a concubine, she has been held up way too high. Just having lost a child, only to learn she is nothing but a stepping stone. She is going to go crazy. The corners of my mouth curled into a smile. I really want to see just how ruthless the Lin Manru of this life can get. By evening, Shasan came back and quietly told me that Lin Manru's eyes were swollen from crying. But she didn't go make a scene with Zhao Shizai. Instead, she quietly went to Zhenbao Jai, bought an extremely sharp dagger, and then went to the black market to buy a packet of poison. I was looking forward to it so much. I've been waiting for this day, for the jackal and the vicious dog to fight to the death. For a long time, the next day, the 2nd day of the 1st lunar month, Zhao Shizai accompanied me onto the carriage back to the Duke's manor. He looked completely exhausted. I pretended not to notice, stroking my belly while pretending to doze off. In my daze, I felt someone touching my belly. Once I realized it was Zhao Shizai, I instantly got goosebumps all over my body. My taut nerves didn't relax until we arrived at the Duke's manor and got off the carriage. After paying my respects to Dad and Mom, I used being tired as an excuse to go back to my room and rest. Zhao Shizai stayed behind to play chess with Dad. By evening, Nanny Li, who served my mother-in-law, came rushing to the Duke's manor in a hurry. When she saw me and Zhao Shizai, she looked panicked, and her face was ghastly pale. "My lord, madam, something has happened at the manor. The old madam asks you to return as soon as possible," she said. So, despite having agreed to stay at the Duke's manor for a while, we took the carriage back to the Marquis of Annan's manor that very day. As soon as I returned to the Marquis's manor, I saw my mother-in-law looking absolutely terrible. She saw me, froze for a moment, then turned to scold Nanny Lee. I told you to get the Marquis back. How come you called a Wu back too? If she gets scared, can you take the responsibility? Nanny Lee bowed her head and admitted her mistake. Mother-in-law turned and ordered someone to take me back to the Duke's manor. I was already back, so naturally I wouldn't just leave like that, and insisted on following them to take a look. Mother-in-law had no choice but to lead us to the outside of Henglin courtyard. Zhao Shizhai walked in, let out a mournful wail, followed immediately by constant retching. I stepped forward to follow, but was stopped by mother-in-law. You are pregnant. Don't get scared. You just need to know, Xiang Yao is dead, she said, her face pale and tears streaming down. My nose is sharp, and I smelled a heavy stench of blood. Marquise, look, I've avenged our child. Lin Manru's crazy voice came from the courtyard. It was this woman. It was this woman who killed our child. Now she is dead. Our child is avenged. Won't you praise me? You lunatic. Zhao Shizai cursed while dry heaving. I was a little curious about what exactly Lin Manru had done. Marquis, tell me. The one you love most right now is me, right? Lin Manru asked eerily. I instantly realized that Lin Manru had truly gone mad. In my previous life, when I was locked up in the estate, I also went mad for a while. At night, I dream of Zhao Shizai coming to make peace with me, while by day I see hallucinations of Zhao Shizai coming to kill me. At first I looked forward to sleeping so I could see the Zhao Shizai who loved me, but gradually I didn't want to sleep anymore. I felt that the me who looked forward to sleeping was disgusting. He plotted to reduce me, the dignified, legitimate daughter of the Duke's manor, to this wretched state. Yet I still long for him to love me, isn't that ridiculous? After figuring this out, I felt that my madness was cured, but the old women guarding me said I was getting crazier and crazier. Lin Manru has gone crazy, so she hopes that Zhao Shizai, who lost Shu Xiangyao, will love her. After standing a while longer, the wind picked up. My mother-in-law and I turned around and went back to Xian Court to rest. Early the next morning, the wind and snow stopped, and the winter sunlight spilled onto the snow on the window lattice, putting me in a great mood just looking at it. Jingxin whispered to me that the capital magistrate sent people to the Marquise's manor to drag away 2 female corpses. Jingxin said the Marquis told the officers that concubine Lin and cousin Miss had always been at odds. Concubine Lin mad after her miscarriage, and suspected cousin Miss of killing her child. So taking advantage of the time when the Marquis accompanied the mistress back to her maiden home, and the old madam was praying to Buddha, she first poisoned cousin Miss, then mutilated the corpse with a dagger, and later she came to her senses and committed suicide to atone for her crimes. But when we came back yesterday, concubine Lin was clearly not dead, and she didn't sound like she was going to kill herself. Jingxin said doubtfully. I chuckled lightly with Lin Manru's nature. Of course she wouldn't kill herself. But someone died in the manor, so the capital magistrate will definitely send someone to investigate. When the officials investigate and concubine Lin spills the truth, the Marquis of Annan favoring a concubine over his wife, and the chaos in his household won't be able to be covered up anymore. Shu Xiangyao, an unmarried maiden, messing around with the Marquis and even plotting to harm his heirs. Even if she dies, people will still poke at her spine and curse her. So, Zhao Shizai killed Lin Manru. Now that she is dead, Zhao Shizai can say whatever he wants. Madam, the Marquis is kneeling in the courtyard right now, Jingxin said. I hummed in response, put on my clothes, and went to pay my respects to mother-in-law. Mother-in-law looked awful, and there was a smell of medicine in the room. Nanny Lee told me that mother-in-law's old illness had flared up. I went to mother-in-law's bedside. She held my hand and spoke to me about Henglin courtyard. Who could have thought concubine Lin would go crazy like this? Luckily, Awu, you returned to the Duke's manor yesterday, so you weren't hurt. Mother-in-law sighed. The white hair at her temples had increased significantly. In just a few short days, she seemed to have aged several years. After this ordeal, Shizai must be scared of those vixens now, and you two can finally live a peaceful life together. That is a mother for you. The fault is always someone else's. But her own son, even if he is wrong, should still be forgiven by his daughter-in-law. I sighed and said, Mother, let my husband go back and rest. It is such a cold day, and he has been busy for days. If he keeps kneeling, I am afraid his body won't be able to take it. A trace of delight flashed through my mother-in-law's eyes, but she still shook her head and said, He made the mistake himself, let him kneel. I coaxed my mother-in-law into drinking her medicine and resting, then took a cloak to drape over myself and went into the courtyard. Zhao Shizai wasn't wearing much. His palms were already frozen blue-black, but his spine was perfectly straight. If one didn't know what he had done, anyone in Shengjing who mentioned Zhao Shizai would have nothing but praise for him, possessing both talent and good looks. He was a rare catch of a man, but I knew he was rotten to the core. I grabbed a hand warmer and walked over, squatting down with difficulty. Placing the hand warmer in his arms, I said, I pleaded with Mother on your behalf, but Mother is truly angry and refuses to let you get up. I could only bring this, at least it provides a little warmth. Zhao Shizai's dead fish eyes finally showed a flicker of change. He looked at me like he was seeing a lifeline, and called my name with a sob in his voice. Wu, aren't you angry with me? There was no mirth in my eyes, though the corners of my mouth curled up out of habit. I said, You are my husband after all. Even if I am angry with you, I can't just leave you be. Zhao Shizai grabbed my hand, sincerely repenting to me. Wu, I was wrong before. I was blind and foolish, unable to see the viper-like nature of other women. Only my Wu is kind. From now on, I will only have Wu in my heart. There will never be anyone else. Yesterday, I was somewhat curious as to how exactly Lin Manru had abused that corpse to scare him into such a state. But he interrupted me, begging, Wu, let the past be the past, okay? All right, seeing as you are my husband and I fancy you, I said. Zhao Shizai perked up. He probably hadn't expected that after being left in such a wretched state of panic by two women. His lawful wife would be so virtuous as to willingly clean up his mess. Wu, it is too cold outside. You go back and warm yourself by the fire first. Don't catch a chill. Zhao Shizai showed unprecedented concern for me. Once we returned to Juming Courtyard, Jingxin said excitedly, Madam, I think the master spoke sincerely. He probably really regrets it. Your suffering is finally over. If I hadn't been locked up in the Grange for 30 years, I probably would have thought so too. But right now, I am not happy about Zhao Shizai's repentance. I just feel disgusted. I told Jingxin to fetch hot water and washed my hands several times with scented soap. Jingxin wiped my hands with a handkerchief and comforted me gently. Madam, Concubine Lin and Cousin Miss are both dead, and the child in Concubine Lin's belly is dead too. Even if the master falls for another woman in the future, his affection could never surpass yours. Once the child in your belly inherits the title, and you become the old matriarch, everything will be perfect for you. But Zhao Shizai is in good health. He'll probably live for another few decades. Wouldn't I have to suffer for another few decades then? No way. I've lived a second life. Why can't I live as I please instead of enduring this for so long? It started snowing outside again. I stood up abruptly, changed my clothes, had Jingxin take down a box of euphomia bark and a jar of Ajiao wine from the curio shelf, and then took her to the kitchen. The day before yesterday, when Shi-san came to report on Lin Manru's whereabouts, he also gave me a packet of the poison Lin Manru had bought. I poured it all into this jar of Ajiao wine. He instructed the cook, first boil the euphomia in water, boil 3 bowls down to 1, then pour it into a jar of wine and warm it on the stove. Also, prepare some dishes that dispel the cold, and wait for the Marquis to come and eat. This is the recipe for warming wine to dispel cold. The cook immediately took it and got to work. After leaving the kitchen, Jingxin said to me, It is good that you've come around, madam. Her brows were furrowed when she said that. I asked her, "I've come around. Aren't you happy?" "I ought to be happy." Jinxin looked at me, a bit of confusion in her eyes. "But for some reason, I feel a little sad for you, madam." She blinked, and the corners of her eyes grew moist. She is a good girl. She doesn't have memories of the previous life and doesn't know the suffering I endured. Yet she instinctively feels aggrieved on my behalf. "It is all right. Let's go to Cian Courtyard." I patted her shoulder and said, when we arrived at Cian Courtyard, the snow had gotten heavier. Zhao Shizai already had a layer of white covering his head and shoulders. I walked over and wiped it off with my hand, but he pulled away and said to me, "Don't worry about me. If you catch a cold because of this, it'll be a great sin on my part." He has used this tone to flirt with Xu Xiangyao, and he has used this tone to deceive Lin Menru. Now, he is using this tone to speak to me. "Just hold on a little longer. I'll go plead with Mother," I said to him. Then, I stepped into the inner room. Inside the inner room, my mother-in-law wasn't lying on the bed. She was standing by the window, staring entranced at the snowflakes outside. She was clearly worried about Zhao Shizai. Yet, she was deliberately putting on a show for me. She wanted my heart to ache for Zhao Shizai, because as long as my heart ached, I wouldn't hold those absurd things he has done against him. I took a deep breath, knelt in front of my mother-in-law, and implored her. "Mother, if Shizai keeps kneeling, he is going to get sick. My heart aches for him." She hurriedly helped me up, saying, "That unfilial son, how is he worth you acting like this?" Then she hurriedly instructed Nanny Li, "Go tell the Marquis that his wife has pleaded for him so he doesn't have to kneel anymore." I was even more anxious than her, getting up and following Nanny Li out the door. No sooner had Nanny Li told Zhao Shizai to get up than I was right there, urging Zhao Shizai with heartache. "Husband, go back quickly and change your clothes. The kitchen has boiled some warm Ukamiya wine to dispel the cold, and they've made side dishes to go with it to drive out the chill too. You've been busy all night. Have a good meal, then lie down and have a warm sleep." The sound of my mother-in-law coughing came from the room. I said, "You go ahead. I'll stay here with Mother." Zhao Shizai held my hand, moved, and said from the bottom of his heart, "Awu, you are so good. In this world, you are the woman who treats me best. I, Zhao Shizai, swear that from now on, I'll only have you in my heart." I pried his hand away. "Hurry and go." Zhao Shizai smiled. "Silly Awu, how could your husband be so weak against the cold?" I put on a shy look and said to him, "That Ukamiya is very old, and the Ajiao wine is a rare fine product too. If I weren't afraid of you catching a cold, I wouldn't bear to take it to the kitchen to boil Ukamiya wine." "Awu, I know your feelings for me," he said to me with tenderness in his eyes. "You treat me so well, I will certainly not let you down." He pushed me into the inner room, kowtowed to mother-in-law, then impatiently left Cian Courtyard. Mother-in-law smiled and said to me, "Look, men are like children. It doesn't matter if they make mistakes. As long as they correct them later, it is fine." "Awu, you've waited until the clouds parted to see the moon. Your good fortune is still to come." She must have been very satisfied with my virtue, as she dug out a set of gemstone head ornaments from the bottom of her chest ones. Her mother-in-law had passed down to her and gave them to me. She said, "Yesterday Nanny Li sent word in a rush. Your mother was worried about you and sent people several times to ask what happened. So I sent someone to the Duke's manor to explain. Now that everything is settled, if you miss your mother, I'll have Shizai accompany you back to the Duke's manor to stay for a few more days. I'll go to Huguo Temple to invite a master to come home, perform some rituals, and get rid of the bad luck." "All right," I said. "I'll also cover up the matters of these past few days in front of father and mother, so they won't get angry at my husband." Hearing this, my mother-in-law became even happier. She excitedly held my hand, speaking intimate words. About an hour later, a servant came hurriedly to deliver a message, saying the Marquis had vomited blood. My mother-in-law, who had been chatting and laughing, suddenly froze there like a chicken being choked by the neck. I gave my thigh a pinch, and supported by Jinxin, I ran outside crying and shouting. Only then did mother-in-law come to her senses and chase out. Zhao Shizai was fine while eating the food and wine, but the poison started to kick in after he finished and went to the inner room to lie down. The servants were worried that moving around would make noise and disturb his rest, so they stayed far away from the inner room, and thus didn't hear the sound of Zhao Shizai groaning. Zhao Shizai struggled in the inner room for a quarter of an hour, crawled to the window and knocked it open. Only then did the servants realize he was vomiting blood. But by then, he was breathing out more than he was breathing in. By the time my mother-in-law and I rushed over, he was already dead. My son, who poisoned you. It was as if my mother-in-law's world had collapsed with a wail. She threw herself onto him. I felt nothing but relief in my heart. Zhao Shizai is dead. I don't have to suffer for another few decades. When my father-in-law was young, he fell into an icy lake and damaged his health. It was hard for him to produce heirs, so Zhao Shizai was his only son. Now that he is dead, the child in my belly is the only hope for the Marquis of Annan's household. In the Annan Marquis manor, no one could threaten me ever again. From now on, the Annan Marquis manor truly became my home. My eyes rolled back, and I fainted onto Jinxin with peace of mind. Jinxin shouted for help, and together they helped me back to Juming Courtyard. Before long, I heard my mother-in-law bring the cook to interrogate Jinxin, demanding to know where the eukomia and Ajiao wine taken to the kitchen had come from. Jinxin pointed at the curio shelf while weeping and wailing, telling her grief-stricken mother-in-law that Miss Cousin had sent them earlier, and they were carefully treasured on the shelf. Who could have thought they would be poisonous? Before long, father-in-law arrived as well. He brought a coroner to examine the body. Zhao Shizai was a marquis, and a grand marquis being poisoned to death was a huge matter, so the emperor quickly received the news and sent the commandant in charge of the capital's security to investigate. Soon, they found out that the poisonous item was that jar of Ajiao wine. The wine was sent to Juming Courtyard by the cousin miss of the manor, but the poison was the same kind that concubine Lin of the manor used to poison the cousin miss to death 2 days ago. So they determined that the murderer was either concubine Lin or the cousin miss, Xu Xiangyao. No, impossible. My mother-in-law wailed hysterically. Concubine Lin and Xiangyao both love Shizai. How could they possibly poison Shizai? The commandant said to my in-laws, "Old Marquis, old madam, I fear the person the murderer intended to poison was the lady of your house. The lady is the legal wife and is pregnant. They laid the poison out of jealousy. The motive is clear at a glance. So my son suffered in Awu's stead?" My mother-in-law's voice was frantic. The commandant sneered. "Old madam, are you muddled? If not for the young marquis favoring his concubine over his wife, indulging 2 women in their jealous rivalry, how would they dare harbor thoughts of poisoning the dignified legal wife?" My mother-in-law was speechless. Me father-in-law rebuked her. "It is one thing for you to spout nonsense now, but when Awu wakes up, you mustn't say such crazy things." My mother-in-law was in disbelief. "You say I am speaking crazy talk. If Awu hadn't given this wine to Shizai to drink, how would Shizai have lost his life?" "Jiangsu!" My father-in-law shouted her down, reminding her. "Don't forget, Awu is carrying Shizai's only child. In this marriage, it was Shizai who wronged her. She is the legitimate daughter of the Duke's manor, not a maidservant you can push around and discipline at will. You should be thankful that Awu didn't drink this wine with Shizai." My father-in-law's voice was powerful and resounding. After a long while, my mother-in-law cried dejectedly, "If I had known it would come to this, I shouldn't have brought Xiangyao back to the manor in the first place." The commandant coolly offered a few words of advice, then took the findings and went back to the palace to report. After I weakly woke up, my mother-in-law cautiously urged me not to grieve too much, terrified I would sense she had an intention of blaming me. I became the youngest widow among the titled ladies of Shengjing. Using the excuse that excessive grief had disturbed my pregnancy, I stayed in Juming courtyard to rest. All the items on the curio shelf were moved away by my mother-in-law. The Marquis Manor was busy handling Zhao Shizai's funeral. Although I was Zhao Shizai's wife, I was 4 months pregnant, so no one dared to trouble me at such a time. Thus, my Juming courtyard became the most idle place in the entire manor. I listened to Jingxin tell me that those matters in the manor had leaked out. Now, everyone outside is laughing at Zhao Shizai, saying he didn't respect his wife. Not only did he exalt a concubine and degrade his wife, but he was also fooling around with his cousin. As a result, the concubine and the cousin got jealous and fought, wiping out 3 lives in one go. It is all retribution. They also said that Shi Wu, the legitimate daughter of the Duke's manor, is a virtuous woman. It is a pity she didn't marry a good husband, but luckily heaven had eyes and didn't let her lose her life. Although she is a widow now, she is left with a posthumous child, so her days still have some hope, Jingxin said. The old madam cried a spell after hearing those rumors, and secretly told Nanny Li that once the Marquis's funeral is over, she'll hand the manor over to Madam to manage. She has no face left to socialize with the ladies of Shengjing anymore. I rubbed my belly and nodded. This means that from now on, I call the shots in my and my child's home. This time, I can openly and legitimately replace some of the important steward positions in the Marquis's manor with my own confidants. On the 16th of the first lunar month, Zhao Shizai was officially buried. The attendant by the emperor's side delivered the imperial edict, praising me as virtuous and gentle, granting me many rewards, and finally bestowing upon me the title of Lady Anan. This implies that my rank is now higher than my mother-in-law's. Aside from the consorts and princesses in the palace and the wives of the princes, I am the most honorable woman in all of Shengjing. After Zhao Shizai was buried, my mother, the Duchess, came to see me. She said to me, "Mother Zhawu, you've suffered so many grievances. Why didn't you send word to your maiden home sooner?" As soon as your father and I learned of Zhao Shizai's deeds, we immediately had your brother go to the palace to cry out our grievances before His Majesty. Fortunately, Commandant Chen was also there to put in a good word for you, which is how we got this edict to back you up. From now on, with this edict and the Duke's manor behind you, you can do exactly as you please in the Marquis of Annan's manor. I am a widow. But from this moment on, I am the most honorable widow in the city of Shengjing. After that, during the annual sacrifices, I would personally write Zhao Shizai's birth characters on a piece of paper and burn it along with the incense, candles, and paper money. I can't remember if Zhao Shizai's birthday was on the 8th or the 9th of the 5th lunar month, so I wrote the 7th of the 5th month every single time. My days were very relaxed and happy. Only on the day I wrote down Zhao Shizai's birth horoscope did I remember my hatred for him. 20 years later, my son came of age, and my father-in-law and my father together submitted a petition for him to inherit the title. My son became the new young Marquis of the Annan Marquis Manor. I handed the task of writing the birth horoscope for the annual sacrifice over to him, and he also wrote the 7th day of the 5th month. 50 years later, I was old, and suddenly one day I dreamed of Zhao Shizai. In the dream, Zhao Shizai complained to me in a whisper, "Wu, ask the servants in charge of the offerings if they are paying lip service to you. Otherwise, after so many years, how come I haven't received anything in the underworld?" I said, "Okay, I'll ask for you later." He said, moved. I knew Wu treated me the best. The day after waking from the dream, it was Zhao Shizai's death anniversary again. My grandson brought a paper with the birth horoscope written on it to show me. "Grandmother, father asked me to write grandfather's birth horoscope. Please take a look. Did your grandson write it correctly?" I saw the 7th day of the 5th month on it and nodded. "That is correct."